As April is Global Volunteer Month, we wanted to shine a spotlight on pro bono volunteering and have a conversation with one of our corporate partners, SAP. Now, to tell you a little bit about our relationship with SAP, for over 10 years now, Pyxera Global has partnered with SAP on their pro bono volunteering programs. More notably, the SAP Social Sabbatical, where they send their employees to work with innovative nonprofits and social enterprises all over the world, providing pro bono business consulting. Now, in the session today, you'll actually be hearing first-hand accounts from SAP's Social Sabbatical alumni who have successfully utilized their expertise to not only support social enterprises and nonprofits, but ultimately empower communities in need. I'm joined today by Attila Farago, Rhonda Hogan, and Isabel Rengruber, and we will be talking about how a successful volunteer program can benefit employees personally and professionally, and not only strengthen your company's workforce, but also its brand and reputation as a socially responsible leader. So before we get this conversation started, I really want to encourage all of you who are watching, viewing, to be active and engaged with us. You can do so by sharing your questions throughout using the Q&A function. And a little later on, we're also going to be sharing a poll, and we would really love for you to participate in that. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our panelists to introduce themselves. And let's start with you, Rhonda. Please let us know a little bit about yourself, your role at SAP. Please let us know briefly about your experience volunteering, how you found out about the opportunity, and just a little something fun about what you took away from that experience.
Sure. Thank you, Cami, and hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session. So my name is Rhonda Hogan, and I have the privilege of working within one of SAP's line of businesses called SAP Concur. I am the Vice President of Marketing for our small business division. How did I find out about the SAP Social Sabbatical? SAP has quite a few volunteering programs. Giving back to the community is something that's very important for us as an organization. And I had participated in several local volunteering activities within my community. And I believe it was probably in the fall of 2018 when I discovered the SAP Social Sabbatical program. I attended a couple information sessions and applied, and luckily was selected to participate in the program in Zimbabwe in the October 2019 cohort. While I was there, I worked with an organization that works with youth that are coming out of university, and this organization was interested in growing and expanding their services. So myself and my colleagues, we participated in helping them redesign their organization so that they would be able to scale their operations to accommodate more employees and more students. So that's a little bit about me and sort of how I learned about the program. Oh. You're on mute, Cami. I can't hear you.
Thanks.
No problem.
Thank you for that introduction. But just as a little fun icebreaker, just
sure.
Something fun you brought back, like a fun tidbit, a token, a souvenir.
Oh, I brought lots of souvenirs back with me. So the one that I use day to day is there were some in Zimbabwe. There are quite a few enterprising, I guess, tradespeople. So I brought back a little jewelry bowl that sort of sits in my bathroom right now and has my jewelry in it. So that's my visual cue every time I'm in my bathroom to remind me of my time in Zimbabwe.
That's lovely. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Rhonda.
No problem.
Next up, let's move on to Attila. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much, Cami, and welcome everyone also from my side. My name is Attila, and I also have the privilege to work with SAP in SAP Customer Experience with Commerce Cloud, working as a development engineering manager. And actually, it was also like 2017 or 18 when I learned about SAP Social Sabbatical, mainly via sessions from past alumni. Within the Hungarian office, we typically had a lot of coffee corner sessions, both on professional things, but also on such things. And it instantly amazed me, and it was so astonishing to see both the impact, not only the experience, but also the potential and actual impact above the experience. I got selected in the 2019 cohort of local experience in Hungary, and our client was a company that is targeting to leverage the potential in hearing and speaking disabled persons, so deaf and hard of hearing people. And actually, they know that these people have at least the same amount of potential, or much more in some senses than others. And they took the challenge to establish an education program and also welcome them as software developers eventually. Three of the local colleagues had the privilege to work with this client, and in this 2-week program, we were working with establishing academy, a sign called as academy, a complete educational program. So it was really a fantastic experience, and later on we will talk about the impact as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Attila. And anything, I know yours was local, but anything interesting that you took away from that experience that you'd like to share?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Actually, in the past, I have learned a little bit of sign code language of myself, but during this 2 weeks, we were kind of immersed with this experience, and you cannot imagine and cannot express in words this rich vocabulary and emotional impact of how they mimic their feeling, how honest that communication is. And it was really, really interesting that besides that, also at the time, we were able to learn sign code language words for C#, Python, and all the technical stuff. So I really loved it. Ever since that, I forgot a lot.
Wow, still, that's really beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, Attila. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to invite Isabel to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Isabel Reingruber. I'm working for SAP in Germany and belonging to the Global Industry Organization, where we take care of the portfolio. In my case, it's the high-tech industry, so making sure that we properly communicate together with marketing on what we offer for the industry, and also secure that we have our customers covered looking into the future. Looking at my pro bono volunteering experience, I have quite a history, also self-organized nearly 20 years ago. I spent some time in Ethiopia and Africa, and also similar as Rhonda, often use local possibilities that our CSR colleagues, in my case, it's within Germany, they have amazing offerings. So I also utilized the possibilities there. And just recently, in February, had the fortune to join an SAP Global Sabbatical in India. And on that global sabbatical that we spent in New Delhi, I worked with an NGO called Conserve India, and they are tackling the problem of plastic waste, while at the same time doing skills building as well as providing employment opportunities for underprivileged people.
Thank you, Isabel. And if you could please just let us know a nice little token or souvenir that you brought back with you from your latest volunteering experience in New Delhi.
Yeah, I also had a challenge on what all fits into my suitcase. So for some friends, I thought the Indian snacks are so nice, let's bring some of them. And then I went with a friend and my daughter, once I've been back, to an Indian restaurant that also had a supermarket. And I just then discovered, oh, they have the same snacks in there as well, which I think is also good news, because now I have my supply chain fixed and more friends even got then some snacks.
Amazing. I absolutely love that for you. Thank you all for the introductions. I absolutely loved hearing about like the diverse experiences that you've had, but also some of the similarities in the impact that you're making. So I want to get into the conversation, and my first question revolves around expectations, right? Something I do in my role in day-to-day is prepare corporate employees for their sort of assignment, whether it's in the country or locally. And we always talk about expectations. So I would like to know, what were your expectations going into your pro bono consulting experience? And perhaps let's start with you, Isabel.
Yeah, definitely. Also having been pro bono volunteering beforehand, I think especially the SAP Social Sabbatical, I was clear it will be a very special time being there with 11 other SAP colleagues from around the world. And my expectation and also really was working with an NGO, providing value, making an impact there, but then also get to know much deeper the field where that NGO is, what problems they are solving, and for sure bringing in my skills, but on the other side also learning. And another important piece for me was also to really get out of the comfort zone, to get into situations where really not have been confronted before, and seeing on how that is all handled.
Amazing, thank you for sharing that. And perhaps a follow-up on that question is, how did you find your experience in relation to those initial expectations that you had?
Yeah, I think it was an amazing experience, outstanding, I would say, looking especially then also on the team that we had been on the ground, where we did a lot of experiences, and looking also at the impact where we, and just said it was in February this year, we already got the feedback from the NGO that really with our work, they have now much quicker progressed with the target they had compared to if we would not have been there. So that was amazing for sure.
Amazing. We always love to hear about the impact that these programs have. Attila, over to you. The same question. What were your expectations going into your pro bono volunteering experience?
Actually, similarly to Isabel, before this pro bono experience with Pyxera and SAP, I also took the opportunity to do a lot of other types of volunteering, mainly self-organized or like local social community organized ones. And actually, I went into this whole social sabbatical experience kind of expecting a very similar experience, of course, with another client. And actually, I couldn't have been more wrong with that, because already initially, we started with a very intense workshop, setting the expectations, setting the stage, introducing the client. And the whole 2 weeks was such an intensive and immersive experience. That was totally opposite of my initial expectations. So I kind of expected a very slow ramp up and a very conscious and a lot of effort process to make sure that at the end we bring value and make sure that our client leaves with a meaningful and valuable piece of outcome. However, already like a second day, we were bombarded with a lot of experts all around the whole horizon. So university professors, secondary school teachers, of course, hearing disabled persons, and they were all giving a lot of feedback, all giving a lot of input. And for me, this made a lot of sense. And actually that 2 weeks already looked like 6 weeks or 7 weeks compared to many different things. And kudos to Pyxera and also SAP CSR colleagues to making it so intense.
Thank you. And that's quite a lovely turn of events, right? To have low expectations and kind of be blown away. So thank you so much for sharing that, Attila. Rhonda, the same question for you. What were some expectations you had? And perhaps like to add a little bit more into that is, what was your most incorrect expectation?
Oh, good one. So like both Attila and Isabel said, just sort of coming in to the organization, not sort of being sure about what you're going to meet and how long, like, because you did 2 weeks, Attila, I did a month, and just sort of looking at the project and going, I don't know how we're going to get this done in this time frame, but just being really amazed at how quickly everything came together and how we were able to leverage things that we learned at SAP, like design thinking workshops, that type of thing, to really help us get to the crux of the issue. So my expectations sort of coming in were way surpassed from that standpoint. I think so that speaks to it from sort of from the professional standpoint. And then from the personal standpoint, we going into a region, and maybe Isabella, you can sort of share this with everyone or not, but sort of being dropped into a country, not speaking the language, not learning, it's like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get along? Where am I going to get stuff? And, landing on and being on the ground and realizing that everything that I needed was right there. Sure, it might not have been the brand of whatever it is that I use currently here today, but there was certainly, I lacked for nothing. And I think that for me was a really big takeaway, as in terms of how quickly you're able to adapt to new environments and new settings. And it was I think that for me was a really fantastic experience. I didn't need what I didn't have, and I made do with what I did have.
Amazing. And you sort of like put it beautifully. I didn't need everything I thought I did, and I made do with what I have, what I had.
Yeah.
Thank you all for sharing that. Earlier on in the introduction, I mentioned that this conversation would touch upon how pro bono volunteering can strengthen the workforce. And that's something that we consistently see as a strengthening of leadership abilities following the participation in these programs. So Rhonda, just kind of keeping it in line with the conversation, do you think that the pro bono consulting influenced your leadership ability? And if so, how?
Oh my goodness, 100% it did. I think the things that I took away from the pro bono experience was working with others from different cultures, different backgrounds, different approaches. When we are within our home countries, we're all sort of thinking within the same lens, and being thrust into an environment where I'm working with colleagues from around the world that have different ways and approaches of doing things. I learned to be a better listener. I learned how to be more empathetic. I learned how to be more concise in what I say and to be really mindful and clear in terms of how I'm communicating with others. Because in my cohort, I worked with people, everyone spoke English, but for some people, English was their second language. And it's hard. Like, if you think about it, when you're thrust into strange environment, maybe I'm very fluent in English, but I'm not in my home country. And it's just, there's a lot that's going on and that you're processing. So for me, those were things that I took back and brought back into my team and used to help me become a better leader. And, when I was during the sabbatical, I was also sort of really thinking about where do I want to take myself and my career, and how can I take and leverage what I've learned, and came back and was able to apply for the role that I'm currently in right now. So I was able to get a promotion up from where I was to where I am today. And I think it was due in large part to how much I want to say matured, if I can say that, matured in my leadership abilities.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks for sharing that, and congratulations on the promotion.
Thank you.
So you've mentioned empathy, communication, listening. I want to hear from Attila, right? So about some of the other skills or practices or attitudes that you may have learned from your experience, and if you apply any of them in your day-to-day role at SAP.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Kami. Definitely. So I had the fortune to, before my SAP tenure, also work for a startup company that is highly different from my current role and company. But what is common in a startup and SAP is that within SAP software development, they're also highly applying agile software development practices, because things are changing. However, during this social sabbatical and during this intense 2 weeks, this is something that even though I had like more than a decade experience in that, that is something I experienced, that things are changing 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a day. And we just go with the flow and keep the focus and understand where we want to go and what kind of business value we want to end up for the sake of the community and for the sake of our client. and eventually achieve it. So I would say what I learned in a very intensive way is change management, or change management to the next level. And ever since that, I was able to apply that very intensively in all my roles and assignments within SAP. And I think from leadership perspective, that is adding a lot to what I'm able to achieve and how I'm able to support my team to achieve more and achieve that in a more fluent and also in a more relaxed and happy way.
Amazing. I love that, change management in an intense way. And also the fact that you've been able to bring it back to your team and sort of pass those skills on. Thank you so much for sharing, Attila. Isabel, I'd also like to know from you, would you be able to share a little bit about any skills, practices, or even attitudes that you've developed and how you use these daily now?
Yeah, and I can echo a lot of what the colleagues also said, fully agreeing on that one. What I would want to emphasize on is also based on the team that we had on the ground, especially also from the NGOs. One item I took away, also looking at the team building process that we had, which was amazing. I think there's also a selection process that goes beforehand. It was an amazing team. I've never would have expected that. And then also one of the characters there, I would say he has a very high humor intelligence, which one could really see how that also positively influenced the team. So there I really took away also, using more humor throughout the day, also in team situation, also in challenging situation, because that really then also changes the mood and really also brings teams forward. The other aspect, which was also something I really had as a target, to go open-minded into that work, also challenging what I'm hearing and not applying my structure that I have in my brain on it. And that was also an amazing experience. I think it might have also been a bit easier than in your normal work, because it's not yet your baby, let's say, which you might have more of our experience in your daily work. But it was really with each conversation, when you really listen, you get new insights, like the concept that we created for that NGO. With each stakeholder we spoke, it got another shape. It even sometimes changed by nearly 360 degrees. But that's also now a skill which I brought back. Still seeing it's more challenging with your babies to apply, really listen to it and challenge it. But I also saw in the social sabbatical the benefit if you really challenge, and also you with the others in my team really used everyone to really challenge on the work that we did to really bring it forward with more quality.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And again, I love hearing the commonality between the skills and practices that you developed, change management, open-mindedness, humor, right? I absolutely loved hearing that. We could always use a little humor every now and again. So keeping the conversation moving, this is a point I want to bring the audience in. We're going to start a poll in a second. So I'd really like my colleagues in the background doing some fancy stuff with tech, and is just going to release a poll. So we would love to get your opinion on this. The question is, what skill would you hope to develop by participating in a pro bono volunteering program out of leadership, problem solving, and cultural awareness? Please let us know via the poll, and I will share the results shortly. Amazing. All right, so far we've been talking about the benefits of pro bono volunteering from a professional or maybe even business lens. And for the next part of the conversation, I'd like us to focus more on the benefits from a personal angle. A big part of really what we do at Pyxera Global is connecting. We connect business, government, and even local communities to solve global challenges. So my next question is, and Isabel, let's go over to you for this. I'd like to know, how has your pro bono consulting experience changed your view of the world? And if so, if you could share how.
Yeah, on the one hand side, really got addicted to it, because what with all the activities I did, and especially the ones that I did internationally, I describe it as the horizon got bigger, but the world gets smaller. If I recall, when I got a confirmation email that I'm going to New Delhi, I was thinking, oh, New Delhi, things around. And yeah, it was also like a kind of a little bit of a challenge for sure. And then you go there, you experience it, you even experience it with an international team, and compared to a holiday, you also get a completely different perspective working with an NGO that, in my case, for example, worked with waste pickers, which you don't get if you're on a holiday, and you also have locals where you can, what you see, really discuss and get also the insights from behind. On that one, where I would say we are more similar than different compared what one here or there thinks. And another area that I had an aha moment in India was also regarding traffic jams, for sure. I'm working or living in Germany, so we stick to the traffic rules, and then experiencing India and the traffic there, which is a kind of a change curve. But I also tried with that openness not to say everyone needs to stick to the rules as Germany did. And then we had been in a traffic jam, and where 3 roads came to 2 roads. And I was really looking for myself on, okay, how quick does it go? And I would say it was quicker than it would have been in Germany, and also for sure not emotionally not that intensive, I would say, looking at these drivers. So it's for me also the challenge, or that insights, is it as I do it, or I know it from my home country, really the best way to do things? And being also there more open, which I think I take on for my personal life as well as for my business life.
Absolutely. And I love that we keep coming to the theme of open-mindedness, and also, again, things that work the way you're used to them working in your home country in Germany don't necessarily work in a different context. And thank you for highlighting that. And I think definitely going in open-minded is the way to go to be able to fully understand and absorb and engage. Attila, we heard from you earlier that you volunteered locally in Hungary. So I actually would like to know from you a little bit about your experience and how that changed your perception of your own local community.
This is a very hard question, Kami, because actually our engagement was locally, so within Hungary and within my home city, Budapest. The type of volunteering and the type of client kind of invited us for a virtual voyage, because actually, even though I have had experience with communities and volunteering on my own previously, this kind of community, so deaf and hard of hearing community, was not really an everyday, let's say, reach for me. And what I took away with me and how this impacted my own community is actually rooted on the question how big my community and how big our community is. Because actually during these 2 weeks, all of us understood that deaf and hard of hearing people are also part of our community, also part of our professional community. So it's not only that you commute and you meet them, but you also meet them professionally. And it's a very, very good thing. And I would come back to a point that Rhonda you raised a few minutes ago, importance of communication. So it was like the second or third day when we understood that these excellent people, these excellent colleagues, it's not the case that they are unable to speak. The case is that they are speaking a totally different language, and that English is also my second language. So my my mother tongue is Hungarian. We needed to understand that for many of them, sign language is part of their communication. Unfortunately, for most of them, it's not a mother tongue yet, so they're working very hard on that. But it would be so nice to reach to a level when there is a kind of common language all around the world, like in Lord of the Rings, everyone can understand one another ultimately. And this is what we understood, that no matter whether you speak Hungarian, you speak English, or you speak sign language, the ultimate goal is to learn as many languages as possible until you are able to understand as many people as possible. And this is something that changed a lot how I view my own community.
Amazing. And I love hearing all the different perspectives from, Isabel saying the world felt smaller, and you saying the world actually got bigger within your local community. And I do also hope that I could understand all languages, like in the Lord of the Rings. Thank you for sharing that, Attila. So on to my next question. A theme that stood out to me from all the experiences you've shared is growth, right? Whether that growth is, the local organizations accelerating their growth, or, the growth of your professional skills. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about some of the personal growth that you may have experienced. And Rhonda, perhaps you can share a little bit more on this. Have you felt like you grew personally from your pro bono volunteering experience? And if so, how?
So that's a really great question. I would say yes. At the outset, definitely. I think, like, if I had to really sort of encapsulate it into one word, I think I came back from my experience. I would say going into my experience, rather, I've always been a very grateful person and just been very, very grateful for what I have. But coming back from that experience, I definitely have a better sense of gratitude for who I am, my place on this planet. There's nothing like, working in a different environment or being in a different country or going through, we did a lot of excursions on the weekends while we were in Zimbabwe, and you realize that you're a dot on this planet. So your hope is that you leave the planet in a better place, that you've met it. And which I think is one of the things certainly that drew all of us into this pro bono experience, is that desire to give back. So for me, that sense of gratitude coming out of the program is definitely where I feel like it's stronger within me since I came back from there, if that makes sense. I see, Isabel, you're smiling because having just come back from India recently, I'm pretty sure that you can also, appreciate the fact that what we think sometimes in our daily lives is so important really pales when you're dealing with people that are trying to put food on the table for their families or live, because that's what we're all trying to do here, is live, right? And leave the planet in a better place that we've met it. So that's how I believe I've grown from this experience.
Thank you so much for sharing. And that's such a beautiful sentiment. And I did see Attila and Isabel nodding, and I just want to open up the floor to see like if something that Rhonda said resonated with you, and if you had anything to add to that, Isabel.
Yeah, also going in that direction, seeing in the fortune that we are living and having that in relation, I think what also really touched my heart was also the passion that I saw with the people working in the NGO, and also for us working on that. So Rhonda, it somehow also still leaves me with that, that you really make an impact, or you can make an impact. If it's regional, it's a water drop somewhere, but it's that water drop. And then also looking on how I grew is also, you can see how the skills that you have, also the personal traits, can really make a difference in such a context. I think that's a good insight you get from such an experience as well. And then also going back to also that international group we had been in, and I would say coming from Germany, being who I am, I'm more a security focused person, and there being abroad in a completely other city, other country, with also this international group, which also brings in different experiences. I really say that I made a lot of, looking at the comfort zone that I said at the beginning, made also a lot of things that I would have never thought at the beginning that I will ever do it. But it's then also the trust you get with that group, with the NGO, and that's an amazing experience as well, to then achieving those things and doing those things and having the adrenaline maybe at the end, crossing a 4, 5, 6 line road in India.
That sounds scary and exciting at the same time. Thanks, Isabel. So I actually just want to send a reminder to the audience that we will be moving on to a Q&A portion soon, where you'll get to have your questions answered by the panelists. So please remember to send those questions in via the Q&A function. And I actually do just have one final question before we move on to that. And this is for everyone. For someone thinking about participating in a pro bono volunteering experience, whether that's locally, globally, what is the one piece of advice that you would give them? Or like most important piece of advice, I would say. And Attila, let's start with you.
I have a very short piece of advice, just do it. Actually, I think all of us, and I've also talked with several social sabbatical alumni, everyone is having this hesitation before applying, that, hey, it might be too intense, maybe I'm not resourceful enough for that. And generally, all of the colleagues I've talked with, ultimately during the 2 weeks, 4 weeks engagement, found that they could fit the piece of they could fit the puzzle in a very, very nice format. And everyone can contribute in a very different format and way, but at the end of the day, the success is shared by the whole team, and everyone is equally important there. So generally, I've never ever talked with upset or so upset alumni, and I've always seen that this immersive experience added a lot, and they could also identify what kind of impact they did, and most of the time they were able to take it forward. So shortly, just do it.
Just do it. Just like Nike, just do it. And Isabel, perhaps, since you have experience volunteering outside of your specific program in your company as well, perhaps you could also talk more to that and let us know what piece of advice that you would give.
Yeah, fully mirroring. I even had it before. Yeah, just do it. And also going in very openly, not thinking it through at the beginning, just having that experience, being open within that experience, and also especially the SAP Social Sabbatical that I've been on with Pyxera. We had an amazing time on the ground, and it's really a present 4 weeks, very, very well spent.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Isabel. And last but certainly not least, Rhonda, please share your piece of advice.
So I think Isabel and Attila both said it. Just do it. Be incredibly open-minded. I think this will be an experience that will 100% change you as a human being. I think the one thing that I've walked away with from 2019 to now, I still have friends from the program. So my cohort, we have a very active WhatsApp chat. You will make friends across the SAP organization and with people that you had no idea existed before you came together to meet them. And that's a shared experience that you'll always have in common together. So yeah, you won't regret it. So do it.
Yeah, and just great sum of advice from all of you. Just do it. You won't regret it, and you're going to gain so much from it. And I think you might not even go into this understanding how much you'll gain from it, just from the sentiments I've been hearing from the group. So thank you. I would like to share the results of the poll that we had earlier. So the sort of skill that was the most popular was problem solving, with 43% of the audience wanting to develop that skill, followed by cultural awareness, and last but not least, leadership. I do wonder where you would rate these as your top choice from the panelists. Attila, what would be your number one choice?
Actually, I was first very happy to see when the poll came up that the panelists cannot answer this, because it's a very tough choice between the three of that. Maybe based on my experience, I would vote for problem solving, but most probably 33 and 34%. So problem solving would lead with 1%. Amazing. In my personal opinion.
Thank you, and I'm sorry I made you answer it anyway.
No problem, absolutely.
Rhonda, over to you. Which skill is most attractive to you in that?
I think Attila's right. It's problem solving. It's being able to sort of get into situations that really you have no experience in, and really just trying to get creative and figuring out how are we going to help solve the problem. So good response, everyone.
And Isabel?
Yeah, I would also see all three are close by, as it is with the survey, and also problem solving for sure on a daily basis. And
we've talked about resourcefulness, right? And how you're put in a situation and you have the skills, you just have to figure out a way to use them and apply them. So I absolutely agree. I think problem solving would be my number one choice as well. So the time has come to listen into the audience and get some of these questions answered. So I'm just going to have a little look here at the questions that we have coming in. And the first question that we have is, okay, here is one. Where can we find the SAP application for volunteering? I think we're going to be able to answer that question in the background, as that's so specific to SAP. So let's move on to a sort of more open question for all viewers. How often should one offer pro bono? I love to offer pro bono regularly to some of my clients. I'm always fulfilled whenever I add value to my clients. That is an interesting question. Who shall we start with? Isabel, I see you smiling. So let's go with you.
Yeah, so I see, Miriam is an HR consultant from Ghana who's working with clients. And if I'm correct, would that be like NGO organization that she's looking on how often that should be offered? I'm not so sure if I understood it correct.
I think as an individual, right? As an individual, you want to offer your pro bono services. Let's look at it from that lens. Yeah.
Yeah, I would see it that there's no limitations as the private budget. For sure, looking at myself, I do it on a regular basis because of my situation. It's not yet in a state that I would have, but that might be my next project, having an NGO that one really continuously supports. I think based on my experience, it is great to have also an engagement where you are a bit more continuously or from time to time, that you also can see how it evolves and what comes out in the end. I think that's also an interesting piece to look into.
Amazing. And Rhonda, what's your thought on that as someone that regularly volunteers?
I think it depends on sort of time, right? The time that you have, the time that you to me, it's the time that you want to devote to it. I think, like Isabel said, it's really open to the individual and sort of what they, and the organization, I think, that they work with, and the activity that they need support with. So I know it feels like a little bit of a wishy-washy answer, but it really does depend. That helps.
Amazing. And then Attila, what's your experience and how would you decide this?
I think mostly I can resonate to and repeat what Isabel and Rhonda said. Maybe what I would add is that many folks around me are I wouldn't say struggling, but considering to do volunteering at all or to a bit more volunteering. And though a lot of my friends, colleagues, acquaintances are doing volunteering in a very focused way. So doing it typically with one organization, one host, or even one NGO. But what I would add to this, and also would share with our audience, is it's also possible not to do volunteering only on this kind of focused way. So if you look around and see NGOs, you see communities in need, or even just open for some kind of volunteering opportunities for a weekend or for one afternoon or an evening, just go for it. You don't need to stick with one. And also that's a very fulfilling experience. I'm also seeing with several of my friends, and it's very, very easy. So you don't need to find your favorite NGO, find your favorite volunteering activity. It's also totally okay to just look for the zillions of opportunities and pick one.
Amazing. I actually love a few points that you've mentioned that I want to touch upon, like focused, right? Like be intentional with it. We talked about like depending on how much time you have. So if you are going to volunteer with an host organization or an organization, it's really important to be intentional because they will benefit so much from your help. You may not think it's much, but they will. So certainly being focused is a good approach. But also another comment that you made about it's everywhere. Like we have global challenges everywhere. Like just look around you. You can find a problem and volunteer to be a part of the solution. So thank you for mentioning those few points. Right. I'm just having a look at a couple of questions. So Hamong's question, right, staying in touch with the organization, right? So here's a question that I'd love to ask. Have you stayed in touch with your host client or remained informed of their work and growth? This is a really good one. I suppose let's start with Isabel, since it's so new, so fresh.
Yeah, so there's also the possibility to continue the work if your time allows, and if there's a need on the NGO. In our case, there was no immediate need, but we definitely are in exchange and staying in contact. And I'm quite interested also seeing the impact after half a year, 2 year, and also then hopefully we did a concept for them once they realize it, also learning on their journey.
Definitely. I think that's a good one to want to know, like, your impact, right? Like you were very intentional going into this, and you definitely want to know how things progress. Rhonda, let's go over to you.
So great question. So I think, given the nature of some of these organizations, and obviously us getting involved with them, sometimes some of the organizations survive and sometimes they don't. And I don't believe that my organization was able to survive through the pandemic. But that said, I do know of a couple other organizations within my cohort that have not only survived, but also thrived through the pandemic. And there are people from my team, the larger team that went, that are still doing work with their respective NGOs. So I know of, I think it's 2 individuals that meet with their NGO at least either monthly or quarterly, just to check in and provide some help. And I do know of other cohorts where that has happened. So it is possible to still stay in touch and still continue long past your assignment.
Absolutely. And, it's obviously sad to hear a lot of the organizations that were impacted with COVID, but the fact that you're still able to stay in touch and support potentially future ventures is great. Thank you for sharing that. And how about you, Attila?
I was able to find my unmute button. I was able to stay in touch with this socially inclusive software development company. They grew ever since, and also they touched upon several other areas that were unseen and untold at the Social Sabbatical program. So I'm really happy that they were able to foster their original idea. Of course, having this discussion, we mentioned that changes ever there. So they also needed to change their original direction. But I'm pretty sure, and I've also seen that they were able to incorporate many of the findings and consulting work that we have done together. And what I would also mention here is that and I'm also very grateful for them, because it was 2019, 1 year before this ugly 2020, when the whole pandemic came. And this company already at the time started to work in a social office. So, and at that time, for us SAP colleagues, this was something new, and we learned a lot from them. So also we continued to apply what we learned from them in that sense, and were able to work very effectively remotely in the past 2 weeks of pandemics.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And there's this one, we don't have that much time left, but there's this one question that I really want to ask from Among. Have you observed any changes in how you work with, manage, or interact with colleagues within your day-to-day job? Anything noteworthy to highlight? And Rhonda, perhaps let's start with you.
Sure. So I talked about, just the improved listening skills, empathy. I think for me, I noticed definitely a change in asking more questions, not trying to bring any sort of preconceptions or bias into a conversation. So that definitely is something that I I have brought back with me from the experience. Because it was so life-changing, I talk about it a lot. I talk about it a lot with my team. And actually one of my directs is currently in Vietnam doing her social sabbatical. So she was accepted this year. So certainly there are a lot of us out there that are very big advocates for this program and do talk it up quite a lot around the organization. So I would say just the sharing and just being mindful, and some of the same stuff that I spoke about earlier about just the gratitude and just being a little bit more sort of measured in my day-to-day, how I interact with my team and colleagues.
Amazing, thank you for that, and it's great to share about these experiences, because just even hearing about all of you talking about them, like we are inspired, and we are inspired to do our own volunteering. Attila, perhaps we can move over to you, and I'm happy to repeat the question. Have you observed any changes in how you work with or manage or interact with colleagues on your day-to-day basis?
Yes, definitely. And this is partly something I covered regarding mentioning this whole pandemic situation. Actually, before that, I had like 2 decades of experience in working with software development colleagues in several different roles. But one thing was common: we entered the office, we sit down to a desk, to a computer, to a meeting room, and then we discussed, we used the whiteboard and have those kind of discussions. And these 2 weeks definitely helped me to transform that and understand much looser coupled connections, and assessing work and assessing discussions in a totally different manner. And ever since that, also in my past role and my new role, because I also changed within the company 1 year ago, it helped a lot to assess work, meetings, and actually the way how to achieve positive end result based on this 2-week experience.
Definitely, and you did also talk about change management earlier, so 100%. Isabel, over to you, the same question.
Yeah, one thing that I really took away also is the different personalities that I worked very, very close with, especially in the team of 3. There was also that larger team. And that also helps me today when working with the co-workers, understanding their needs, understanding how they work. There was time really to also exchange on how people are feeling, if it's this or that oneself is doing, or how they're feeling dedicated situations. So it's also the better understanding for colleagues. And on the other side, looking at India and seeing there that family friendship takes a high stake, I would say my small talk time has increased, and it's a pleasure. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm glad that you could also like take away like a practice that you could incorporate into your daily life. All right, so unfortunately we are running out of time, but I do have one final question for the panelists, and that is, if you could sum up your experience in one word, what would that be? And let's go ahead and start with Isabel.
One word, you said?
Mm-hmm.
I go for life-changing.
Okay. I think that counts as one word, hyphenated. Thank you for that, Isabel. And Attila, over to you.
Yeah, one word is me, but I would go with impactful.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Rhonda, how about yourself?
Oh gosh, you both took my words. Oh gosh. I'm gonna use Isabel's word. It was life-changing. It was life-changing, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, and I would like to kind of give a big thanks to the audience as well, for the time you took to join us, for asking questions, participating in the poll, and a huge thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Rhonda, thank you, Isabel, thank you, Attila, for your time today and for sharing all these wonderful insights. I'm sure that you've sort of answered some curiosities and answered a ton of questions for some people watching about the value, and if anyone was on the edge or thinking about it, I hope that it can transform someone's mind into actually just doing it. For the audience, We will be sending over a follow-up note to all the registrants with some additional resources. There were some questions asked about how we could support host organizations looking to participate in SAP's sort of volunteering program. So we'll be sharing that information. For anyone else that is on the call that is interested in our pro bono services, Pyxera Global, you can find out more about that on our website. I believe my colleague will be sharing these in the chat, but we will also be sending them in the follow-up email. We also recently published an article this month about the purpose-driven employee, and that's again more to do with volunteering, and we'll also be sharing a link to that. If you want to know more about SAP's Social Sabbatical program that we've been talking about, we've been name dropping here and there, please feel free to visit www.sap.com/social sabbatical. There you'll find information about sort of like how it was started, the impact that's been made, and some of the great work that we're doing. And if you are a corporate employee that is looking to volunteer, or a nonprofit or social enterprise that is looking for corporate employee support, you can also check out SAP's Transform Support Hub, which we'll also be sharing information on. On that note, I would like to sort of just thank the panelists again, thank the audience again, and we hope to catch you at a volunteering project or hear from you soon. Thank you, everyone. Bye.